Okay, welcome everyone to our fourth weekly Composr community chat. We've got right now Chris Graham and Bob Myers with us, and I am Jacob Kaufman. We are at jit.c/composr. The link is in the description if you're watching the live stream and you want to join into our chat. This week we got a few things on our agenda. We are hopefully going to be going over the main multi-content block. We'll see if Soccer Dad shows up because that was his request. He was here just a moment ago. And then we'll be taking questions and looking at things in the tracker. So, Chris, what do you think we should get started on first?
I tell you what, let's start with the main multi-content block, which is the main thing we're going to cover today. And Todd, if you have any problems speaking, just type into the text chat, and I'm keeping that open. So I'll make sure I read that. So
okay, thanks, Chris.
What we're going to do is we're going to do a tutorial on the Composr main multi-content block, which is a block in Composr that can draw out content from any one particular content type. So it might draw out content from news, for example, or a particular catalog you've set up, or it might take out gallery images. And then you can kind of filter and sort it in various ways. So you can filter it to a particular category, or you can sort it by date. So you can have the top 20 entries added to my catalog, or the most popular 20 entries added to my catalog. So as I said, we're going to cover that today. And if Todd can give us a bit of guidance on how it would be best to cover it. So if we set up a catalog and we just show everything from one category in that catalog, is that a good start?
That works for me.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now. Okay, so we have my test site. It's a very empty kind of test site, and I'm going to go to the CMS zone, and we're going to add a new catalog. Oh, and I'm in American English now. I'm used to it being in British English. So we've got the American spelling of catalog here. Okay, test. It's going to be a really simple testing. So it's going to have some kind of title field for our catalog. And we'll have a paragraph of text for a description field. We'll just leave it at that for now. Maybe we'll add to it later. Okay, and I don't think we've got any. Oh, we've got a root. We added a tree catalog, so we've got a root category already. So let's just keep it simple and add some entries to that root category. I did that wrong. I meant them both to be one. So 2 will do for now. And if you just bear with me, I'm going to open my text editor up here. So I haven't actually got a customized start page yet, so I'm going to create one in the English language pack. Okay. So I've just created a customized front page with a title and an instance of the main multi-content block. And I just did that in my text editor just because I'm used to doing it like that. And it's loading. Okay, I'm not sure exactly what it's doing here, but I'm going to actually open up the page in the normal editor. I hope I don't have web server problems again this week. I think it was just filling up the caches. Okay. Okay, so the main multi-content block actually defaults to showing downloads. And I'm going to edit the page properly from here. I'll follow the edit link. And we're going to change the settings of the block. So we're going to show catalog. Sorry, we're going to show catalog entries, because if we picked catalog, it would list catalogs. We're trying to show the entries of a particular catalog. And we're not going to do it by recency, we're just going to do it by title. And there we go. That is very straightforward, I think. Let's preview that. Yeah, so that's showing our entries. The only problem right now with this is it's showing entries from every catalog because we haven't filtered it to a particular catalog. So the main multi-content block, it works based on content types, and kind of hypothetically, each catalog you could say is a different content type, but in terms of the system, the way it's implemented, it's all catalog entries. So we do need to filter it. And now, honestly, I have to remember how to do this. Okay, so using select code. I've made a mistake here because normally we'd use a main CC embed block to embed a catalog category. So let's just do that, just to show that that works. And then I'm going to try and work out how to filter to a particular catalog using the main multi-content block. Okay. The text is used because I accidentally added it inside the page title. Okay, so it looks the same. Now let's get it back to our main multi-content block.
Wasn't it catalog entries?
Oh, good catch. Okay, select code. Let's just try setting that to test because it's a catalog named test. Actually, test star because it's a catalog, because it's a category. Oh, actually, I think this is going to work, but I think I've just remembered how to do it now. Yeah, it's actually because the select code is working on categories, not catalogs. So if I have the category ID of my catalog, then I can do it. Okay, so let's go back to the CMS zone and find the catalog ID. Now let's go to the catalogs page. Okay, so here's our test catalog. We're inside the root entry, the root category, and if we look at the link, get it link, you can see 8 is the ID of this particular category, the root category for this catalog. So if we put in 8 star for the select code, that should select anything that is in category number 8. Yeah, cool. Okay. So I guess now we're going to segue into a slight select code tutorial. So 8 star seems a bit weird because normally select code would work based on category IDs. So we have here 2 entries. Sorry, it would normally work on entry IDs. I'm really messing up my terminology today. So we have this entry, which is, I think, an ID of 1, if I looked at that URL correctly. Yeah, ID of 1. And the other one will be 2. So if we did just a select code of 1, it should just show us entry number 1. Yep. And if we did a select code of, say, 1, 5, and 7, it should still only show us 1 because 5 and 7 don't exist. Yep. And if we did 1 to 1000, it should show us both. Yep. So select code is pretty powerful. You can do ranges, you can do particular IDs, and you can do filtering based on category. And do we remember what the category ID was? Was it 7? I think it was.
I think it was 8.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll see. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So yeah, I was getting a bit confused before because I was thinking about filtering based on catalog, but no, we have to do it based on category. And because we're using a tree catalog, we can just filter to everything beneath the root. And that's the same thing as selecting anything from that catalog. If it was a non-tree catalog, it would be a bit more difficult. We'd have to do a comma separated list of the IDs of all the categories. Like, let's say it was a non-tree catalog and we had categories 8, 9, and 10. We'd have to do like 8 star, 9 star, 10 star, to get in all those individual categories. bear with me. I'm just going to look up the select code tutorial. Okay, so here's our syntax for categories. So yeah, star is a subtree. We can also select particular categories. So let's say we wanted everything under the root category, but not any subcategories. Instead of doing 8 star, we'd do 8 pound. That'll just get everything in category number 8. Okay, so let's continue on from here then. Okay, we found a bug. That's really weird. The editor on my test site isn't saving stuff. So I'm just hand editing the conc code here. Okay, finally. Okay, so we want to do custom templating now. So this is just a default templating for a catalog. And we want to lay it out in a bit better way. So we should be able to do template sets on the block. Okay, so we can give it a block ID and we can give it a GUI ID. Just trying to think what's better for this. Probably a GUI ID. So we're going to give it a GUI ID of category entry list. And I'm just going to hand edit it in here because our editor isn't working. So what the GUI ID will do is it will pass in that GUI ID to the templates. Look at the block main multi-content. So we're going to edit the main multi-content, the block main multi-content template. Okay, I'm just going to put GUI ID here. I think that's the name of the parameter. Okay. Oh, I saved it in the wrong directory. Okay. So I was trying to save my override into templates custom and I accidentally put it into text. It should be in templates custom. Okay, and refresh. Okay, there we go. What I was doing with the URL is I turned block caching off temporarily because I realized where I, and then I put wide high in, wide high to 1 because regenerating the menu block on a default install, at least a default dev install, takes a while because you've literally got every single add-on we've ever done installed and has to enumerate them all. So by putting wide high 1 in on it, just kind of doesn't do the menu. Okay, so we can see we've got our GUI ID as category entry list coming out, which means we can now start doing custom templating based on that. Just to make this a bit clearer, let's have 2 blocks. Let's say one is having a GUI ID of category entry list 1 and one having a GUI ID of category and refresh. Okay, so we can see here that we can separate the blocks out and do some temp code to lay them out differently based on the GUI ID. The problem we have right now, though, is the block main multi-content template doesn't really, what we're seeing here isn't really that template. That template's surrounding it, but only very minimally. The real templates used are actually the catalog templates because the main multi-content block will use the box rendering code for the particular content type it uses. So in this case, because it's catalog entries, it will render it using category entry box templates. In particular, it's doing what's called field map rendering. So we need to edit the field map catalog templates. Catalog default field map entry wrap is the one we want. So it's a catalog template. Default means it's the one we use by default for all catalogs. And then it's field map display, and it's wrapping an entry in the field map display. We can actually override per catalog. So we could save it as catalog underscore test underscore field map entry wrap, and it would automatically use that for the display. But because we're using 2 different displays on the same catalog, just overriding per catalog isn't enough. We do need to use temp code. So I'm going to override this. Now, if I put in the GUI ID, I'm honestly not sure if that is going to carry through. Let's see what it's going to say for its GUI ID. I don't know why my web server is so sporadically slow today. I wonder if, because I had a MySQL problem last week, I wonder if I didn't fix that properly. If it's losing the MySQL connection again. Oh, okay, good. So it has carried through the GUI ID properly. So we do have the GUI ID in the template we need. Now, we're segueing again into temp code and catalog templating. So we've started talking about the main multi-content block. We've then talked a bit about select code. We've then talked a bit about GUI IDs. And now we're talking a bit about catalog templating using temp code. So I'm just going to wipe out entirely the default template. The default template is just built by basically putting catalog fields sequentially next to each other. So we have the title field, then we have the description field, but we can do much better than that. We can actually individually reference each field. So we're going to do it by number. So the first field, then the second field. And we'll say title colon and description colon, and we'll put it inside paragraphs. See how that looks. Oh, okay. Probably because I'm meant to be counting from 0, not 1. Yeah. Okay, so that works, but we still obviously haven't customized it based on GUI ID. So let's do something a bit more interesting. Let's have the title can become a header free, and the description we'll just put underneath it, and we'll put it inside a paragraph if it's not already in a paragraph. So this temp code paragraph symbol is really useful. If the parameter is already a block element, like it's wrapped in a div intrinsically or wrapped in a paragraph or a table or something, then it will leave it alone. But if it's just loose text, then it will put a paragraph around it. So it's really useful for making sure that something is in a block element, which is what we want. Okay, so we have our two GUI IDs. So we'll say start if it's equal to the GUI ID of that one. Just being careful to make sure my braces balance here. So the GUI ID parameter, we're checking equality against this string, and it's wrapped inside an if directive. So for category list 1, we do that, and for category list 2, we'll make it different somehow. I don't know how yet, making this up as I go along. Let's just make it red. And because we're getting close to Christmas, green, red and green, right? And I can take this out. Okay, very Christmassy. I like it. Okay, now we should have a default case too. So if not equal the GUI ID to the first one, we have to wrap it. No, actually, just do if it's equal to, but we're going to wrap it in a NAND. Anyone who knows a bit about electronics will recognize NAND, but I'll explain it in a sec. What this means is, oh, sorry, it should be NOR, not NAND. NOR means not or. So if either of these are true, then it won't do what's inside. So we could also write it differently. We could say like that. NOR is kind of a shorthand. So if it isn't true that this is, if this isn't true, and this isn't true, basically. I guess we could also, if we're getting nerdy, we could do it a completely different way. We could do and not that, not that. It's all, these things are all logically identical. It's just different ways of thinking about it. So if it's not that, if the GUI ID is not this, and it's not this, or if it's the case that it's not that it's either, or it's no operation between the two. If you study electronics, you'll do truth tables and you'll learn that these things are identical. We'll just use the first one though because it's the shortest. And I'll just do some default case. It doesn't really matter for the purpose of this demonstration. Okay. And because we're trying to make some kind of layout, custom layout for a site, we probably don't want to have this archives link here. So we've already overwritten this template. Let's look where the archive link comes from. Probably this. Yeah, so in the default template, we set links to be equal to all the HTML for this bit. So let's just not have it for the case of custom GUI IDs. Actually, we can reuse this bit of temp code. We're going to show it for the default case, but not for our customizations. Okay, a little bit of problem with my web server and my page editor, but otherwise we've achieved what we want. So, Todd, how can we make this more complicated? If you want to challenge me to take it to the next level somehow. I'm not hearing anything from anyone. Anyone want to chime in with a way to make it more?
I can give you something I'm wondering. Well, I know it's possible, but just for a little challenge. Let's say I was using these categories to put videos, and rather than going and getting embed code and pasting that in every single time, I wanted to just paste a YouTube link into a category field and then have a template that automatically takes that link and uses YouTube's API to fetch the embed code to put that in.
Right, okay.
Or, I mean, the YouTube embed code, all you need to insert is the video ID. So really all I would be doing is take one of those fields and insert it into a more complicated HTML thing, because you're already basically doing that with your divs and your headers.
Okay, so we'll edit our catalog and we will called YouTube video ID. And it will be identifier, code name.
And Todd, if you have any questions that are more relevant to you, feel free to pipe in after this as well.
Okay, so it's not required. And we'll save this field into the catalog. And we'll edit test entry number 2 to have an actual ID of a YouTube video. Okay, I'll just take whatever the random one that YouTube is recommending to me. So this is the video ID on the end. So we're editing first entry with the ID. Okay, so if we view it, then we should just see the ID written. Oh, actually, okay, so it's using the same templates as the category view, and I'm not even seeing the ID, presumably because I made a mistake when I edited the catalog. Test YouTube video ID, displays. That's weird. Why did I say? Oh, it's probably caching. What? Oh, of course. Yeah, what am I talking about? This is, we put in a default layout that assumes the fields, but we didn't obviously have anything for the new field we added. Yeah, so I'm just kind of confusing myself here. So let's actually bring back the real default view. Okay, default, and we'll put that in as the fallback case. Okay, that's what I expected. So back to the home page. Okay, so we want to have a YouTube player come in. So we're not actually going to use the YouTube API, but we will use the YouTube embed code. We don't actually need to use any kind of API. So I'm just picking a random video because I'm just using that to find the embed code. Okay, so let's put it into the Christmassy one. Let's put it into this bit. YouTube code. And this is the ID. I'm just going to check that it's only in there once, and it is. That's going to be field 2. But we're going to say field 2 underscore raw because we don't want any kind of processing. In the case of field 0 and field 1, we allowed Composr to do field processing, kind of layouts that come with a field. But by saying raw, we're saying we're getting the raw ID, and then we're doing this star which escapes it into HTML. We could have just done that, it would have worked, but I'm just getting it technically correct here. Oh, okay. Okay, so when it comes to catalog editing, it's really useful to use this directive. I think that's it. Yeah, this directive, it dumps out a list of every single parameter to the template, because I obviously got the wrong one. And I think the mistake I made is I said raw when I should have said plain. Let's try that. Okay. But the mistake I've made is I have put out the embed code even when the ID is blank, as you can see here. So we need a bit of temp code here. Okay, like that. And there we go.
Neat.
Now let's get it on the entry page, because we've left the entry page a mess. Okay, I'll go back manually. Okay, so I'm just trying to think what's the best solution to this. We could try and customize every different way that the catalog might be viewed. So we'd customize the entry screen. We'd customize this default case that I put back. And as we've just done, we'd customize the front page layout, the block layout. But that is kind of exhaustive. So let's just make it so that the default code will look, or the close to default code will look okay. So I'm just trying to think here. Catalog default field map entry field. That's going to get called for this cell. So we're going to make this cell look like a YouTube video, even if it's using the standard table layout, field map layout. So we need to override this template. Oh, this time we're doing this for the catalog rather than the block. So we can actually override it for the catalog. And we can say, I think the ID parameter is, the field ID is probably called ID, but I could be wrong. So I'll try it, and if it doesn't work, I'll fix it. So if it's equal the ID to, I'm gonna do this differently. I'm not going to use the ID number. I'm going to use the field name. Field name is equal to YouTube video ID. We're going to have this branch. Otherwise, if it's not equal to that, we use the default branch. I'm just trying to find the code I had. This code. Okay. So field to plain in this case is value. No, that didn't work. Catalog test. Entry field templates. I'm not sure what I've done there. Maybe I made a mistake when I overrode the template. Just going to override it to default for all catalogs. No, that's not working. Okay. So let's use one of our debug tools here. I'm using the show template edit link debug tool, which will take a little bit more time to render the page, but it'll put an edit link under every template used so that we can see exactly what templates are being used. In this case, it's taking ages. Okay, well, I'll sort this out in a few minutes. Have we got another case for us to look at? Todd, oh, you got a problem with your mic. Okay. Can we make columns instead of rows using temp code and or GUI ID? Okay. That's a good question. So if it is just for the regular view of the catalog, then we can use the layout settings for the catalog. Just bear with me a moment here. Okay, so I'm just going back to what I was doing first. So I'm just trying to see what templates are used. I think I've got some kind of caching problem. I'm not sure exactly. Okay, so we're going to try and make things look column based. Yeah, I seem to be having caching issues. Okay, so we're going to edit the catalog and we're going to change the layout mode. So we're going to change it from field maps to tabular listings. Okay, so that's changed how the catalog view works. But I think for the front page, it'll probably look identical to how we left it. Yeah, because the main multi-content block assumes the field map layout, even if we have it set differently on the catalog. So that's why I said it's interesting. There's a problem here. But I don't see any reason why we can't just template. So I'll just reduce this back to the templates we were editing before. Let's make it so the first instance of the block is columned and the second instance of the block remains Christmassy. So the block main multi-content template is wrapping all the entries in the block. But I wonder if there's another template involved here. Let's just assume this is the top level wrapper template, this block main multi-content template. Is this our override? Yeah. Just bear with me. If it's going to be category entry list 1, then we're going to have a custom bit of display code around here. If it's not that, then we'll use the default. Not. So we're using a table. And tables need a header. And a body. And then we will loop through the entries inside the body. And we also need to wrap around the empty bit. In fact, it would be better if we put the if none empty bit around the whole lot. That's going to be the same regardless of whether we use a table or not. We're only showing it if it's not empty. And if it is empty, we're going to show the normal no entry message, regardless of whether of which display type we're doing. Okay, so we need to define our header. So we're going to have let's have two columns. One is the first one can be ID number, and the second one can be title. I was thinking we don't really have any other columns we can really use in a table. So just based on the scenario we have ID and title. Okay, so the body of the table will be individual rows, which means this template now needs to output rows. Okay, fingers crossed. Okay, I'm just checking the HTML here because I wasn't sure if there was a template in between. And no, it seems fine. It's going straight from the T body to the TR. So there's no divs in between, which I was wondering there might be. Okay, so let's style this a little bit. So Composr comes with default style, which is the results table, I think, and wide table too. Yeah. Okay, and we're not quite there because we haven't got the curved borders right. Look at one of our default templates to remember how we put the styles in. Oh, we usually use column table too. There we go. That's got the curved borders right. Okay, so I'm just going to go back because I'm really wondering why my previous thing I didn't get working. So why is my override not working here? Okay. Okay, I'm just wondering if this template is used. that is used. Okay. It must be running this branch. Yep. So the individual rows in the field map are output by this fields parameter. So maybe I was editing the wrong template. I'm making an incorrect assumption somewhere. Yeah, okay. So our override did work. I just probably got the temp code wrong. Let's output the field name. Yeah, so we can see what we're working with. Oh, okay. Oh, so a correct field is called YouTube video ID. And I'm only outputting the video player if the field is blank. I forgot to change this. So that should actually be value. Okay. Except because it's a field map, we have to have the actual table row around it too. Okay, so let's go to the front page. So we've got our columned view, we've got our custom templated view, and if we go to the catalogs page, go to catalog, the category view is the default for the columned view, which I guess we can customize a bit if we want. And then if we click through, we get a slightly customized view with the video player. Let's customize this view a bit. We won't do it with template editing, we'll just do it by editing the catalog, because we don't want the YouTube video ID to be in a column, and we really don't want the description to be in as a column either. So if we edit those fields, we can say that we don't want to display them in the category views, or we'll leave it on the feature views, but we'll turn it off for the category views. Okay. Okay, cool. I feel that was pretty comprehensive, quite muddled because we went back and forth quite a bit, but we have edited quite a fair lot there. Any more questions? I'm sure I can keep taking this scenario forward if I have some idea where you'd like to go with it. Todd, are you typing or not? You are, okay. He's nodding his head.
So the main multi-content block, we've been focusing on how it's used for catalogs, but it can also be used to mix other content in the same block, right?
Yes. Okay. Are you saying you want one instance of the main multi-content block and you want to be able to show, for example, both news and gallery images within that same instance?
I'm just asking if that's possible.
No, it's actually something we want to do in the future, and we probably will, because I want to do it on our new Composr CMS home site.
With the tiles, right?
Because I wanted...
well, that's
maybe
sort of
yeah,
the same thing as what you're talking about with that, having all of your content in the same block.
You're right, that wasn't what I was about to say, but you are right. For the new Composr CMS site, we're going to replace the news on the front page with a combination of news and new tutorials, and I think probably pinned forum topics. I haven't quite decided yet. So we're probably going to improve the main multi-content block code to be able to draw from different content types. But yes, for the new tiled view, it is possible that we might implement that using the main multi-content block. And maybe rather than defaulting it to showing content from the downloads content type, we might default it to showing content from every content type as tiles, which would be really cool. Hasn't really been determined exactly how we're going to do that yet. We might do it via improving the activity block, which shows activities that have happened on the site, which is slightly different. So the main multi-content block draws content directly, whilst the activity block there's a layer of indirection, because when you add content, it will log an activity, and the activity block displays the activity. So whether tiles are going to come from activities that have happened or if it's going to do a query based on new content, it's not clear. Potentially we could do both, and maybe we could even merge those two blocks. Maybe the activity list could just be kind of like a pseudo content type that the main multi-content block shows. Okay, so we have a message here. That was awesome so far. I had not used any of the GUI ID stuff, and now that I see the basics of the multi-content, I'll play with that this week, and we'll no doubt have some follow-up for next time if I may. My learning method is to do, then curse, then ask Chris, so I'll continue to follow the model. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I was going back and forth a little bit, trying to get it to work. Try to keep all the different templates and fields and screens straight in my head whilst also talking about what I'm doing, and fighting my biggie web server is kind of limiting me a bit too. So maybe in these tutorials I'm a bit closer to the struggles of the average user. So has anyone got any questions at this point, or shall I launch into implementing some tracker issues? Okay, tracker issues it is. So I have open the tracker, and Bob has actually flagged a few things that he wants implemented that are also tagged with can implement during live chats. So we have better email log management, we have advanced breadcrumb editing, which is a tutorial, and we have menu editing, adding content trees under a node. We can do advanced breadcrumb editing. Maybe we can even incorporate it into the test case we already are doing here. So if we are viewing an entry, we have the default breadcrumbs. So we have the entry title, basically, going back to the catalog category and then back to the home site. This is actually already customized in a way. It's just a default level of customization that comes with Composr. This is the fields.xml system, which is quite an advanced feature many people don't know about. So I'll show you where it is in the CMS. It's in the admin zone. Maybe the setup menu. I have to remember myself. It might be under configure. Yeah, setup, configuration, breadcrumb overrides. Oh, sorry, it's not the fields XML, it's the breadcrumbs XML. Fields XML is something different. So we can edit this inside this editor, but I prefer just to use my text editor, so it's the same thing. And I'm going to override the default into, starts off in data XML config, but I'm going to put it into data custom XML config. So I'm going to override it. So as I said, we come with all these default rules. And in particular, we make sure the catalogs look reasonable on a default site. So from a logical point of view in Composr, we would want to have the breadcrumbs for catalog entries to go back to the list of catalogs, because catalogs, you go from catalog entry back to catalog category, back to maybe the index of that catalog, back to the list of catalogs, back to the zone front page, back to the home page. That's the logical sequence. But the list of the catalogs and the catalog index, probably on a live site, you don't actually want them to be in the breadcrumb chain, so we take them out. So let's just wipe out all these defaults, and you can see how it would actually look without them. I'm wondering if I've got caching here, actually. Oh, yeah, okay, I was getting confused because to my mind it didn't change, but it did change. I expected it to get longer, but actually when I undid the default rules, I took out some logic that removed links from the breadcrumbs, but I also took out some logic that added some links to the breadcrumbs. So let's look at the default again. So the default, it starts at home, but there's nothing about the content tree that links back to home. That's something we do in this file. So rather than me just wiping out the whole thing at once, let's wipe out it bit by bit. So this whole set of rules define how the pages link back to the home page. So if we take that out, oh, this one too, and these. No, just this one. Okay, I'm obviously getting confused today. Maybe there is a layer of caching too. Oh, Yeah, sorry, I am getting confused because there's so many default rules I can't remember exactly how they all work. Yeah, the catalogs ones are actually going back to home too. Okay, let's just start from scratch. So without the defaults, the hard-coded defaults in the software would go from the entry to the category to the list of catalogs. So back to category, then back to the list of catalogs, which is very logical but not very user-friendly. So let's imagine we want to have home before catalogs. I remember what the rules like that now. Getting one into my clipboard, that's all. Okay, so we're going to add something in front of catalogs to take us to home. So if the match key is that, then it will put home on. Let's see if this works. Yeah. So if we have a match on the page being catalogs in any zone, then we add this link in front. And this is a final check, so it doesn't keep going through the breadcrumbs looking for more matches, because it would actually match this too, because this is also the catalogs page, which we don't want. So we've added something on the front, but we could have it as something else. So we, by the way, this is a language string, so it's the same as saying that. But it could be like example, and it could be to the galleries page. Now going to the galleries page rather than home. And we could actually have home on there too. I can't remember which order they go in. Let's see what happens. I want the other way around. Okay, so now for some weird reason, I've made the catalogs go to the galleries and then the galleries goes to home. Well, actually, if I go to galleries, it won't have a link to home because I actually made the catalogs have these two on front, but I didn't do it for the galleries. So a better way to do it would be just to make this simpler, I'm going to get rid of wildcards. I'll do it in logical order. So the galleries is going to have a link to home. Let's see if that works. Okay, and just to make it less confusing, I'm going to change example to galleries so you can actually see. Okay, so catalogs still have our rules to add these on the front. And also we've added a rule for galleries to add home on the front. We can also chop stuff out. So let's say we wanted test entry to show directly under galleries. Okay, let me just see if I can do this. It's a little complicated even for me doing this from memory. Usually I'd refer to the documentation. Okay, so we're doing a match key on the category screen of the catalogs module, and we're going to make that have the same as if it's the root of the catalogs. That doesn't work, does it? Site catalogs categories. Maybe I need to take out this final rule. Okay. So without the rule home galleries catalogs test home, and you see we've snipped out the catalog list because by matching on this, which is site catalogs category, it's the site zone, it's the catalogs page, it's the category screen. We're defining exactly what's in front of it. In other words, we're chopping out what's in front of it by default, which is a list to the catalog list, a link to the catalog list. We're chopping that out by matching on this and replacing what's on front. I know that was really confusing because it was confusing for me, but I made the editor I wanted to make. So maybe if anyone wants to ask any questions, what's confusing about that? Maybe I can do another example.
This is Bob. I think I understand what you were doing because that's I wanted to get rid of one in the middle, and I think I can figure it out now. So thank you.
I think it might actually help if I explain it again. So rather than me trying to write and test rules as I go, if I just explain these rules I've written from top to bottom, That might be clearer. So we have a rule here that says if we are matching this match key, which is basically the same thing as a page link, and the match key is the galleries module in the site zone, then we're going to replace. Okay, let me start again. So how this works is we have the default breadcrumb chain. I'll go back to the default breadcrumb chain. I'll just keep that open. I'll go back to the galleries page. So the hard-coded default in the software is, excuse me, if you're at the root of a module, then there are no breadcrumbs because there's nowhere actually to go deeper to. So we're adding a rule here. It will go through the breadcrumb chain that's default, and if it finds a match on site galleries, it will add everything listed here in front of where it finds a match. And the way this is actually working is this isn't in our breadcrumb chain, but it's the page we're at. So it will match right at the end. So it's going through the breadcrumbs, and then it's going through the current page we're actually at. And it will match because we are on the galleries page of the site zone. So it will then add this to the front of the breadcrumbs where it matches. And in this case, there's nothing else. So we'll put that as the only link. We could put something else there too. So we could say at home to and some imaginary page called start to. I think that's a bit clearer. So again, we're matching on a position in the breadcrumb chain. In this case, it's a position like a pseudo position because this is the page we're actually at. So it's matching right at the end, and then it's adding these links onto the breadcrumb chain at the match point or before the match point. Okay, so hopefully that's clear. It is complicated.
Much better.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess I can mark that resolved. Oh, I've also said I'm going to customize the layout, the label shown for a breadcrumb segment, which I haven't done yet. Okay, so let's go back to this. I've got to try and remember here. So it's possible also to customize the label shown in the breadcrumb tree. Yeah, I can't honestly remember how this works. Oh well, we'll leave it there. I think that's good enough. You might have a bit of editing to do again, Jacob. Okay, so better email log management is a feature we've got here for implementing. Add delete all checked and delete all with subject line matching features to the email log. And I've got it down as taking 2 hours. We've only got 40 minutes, so I better not do that one. And we've got a menu editing tutorial. This is a default. The menus we have are auto pop. So we're going to start by overriding the default menus. So this is just saying we're not going to use auto-generated menus anymore. What it's going to do is it's going to copy the menus back and edit, and I'm going to radically. I'm just deleting pretty much everything off it. We'll have just 2 branches on there. We'll have home and we'll have forums, and the forums is going to go to the forum module. There we go. Okay, we'll save that. So we do just have those 2 links. Now, what would be really cool is if we automatically had a drop down under forums that was a link to every forum. And we could just edit that onto the menu, but if we're adding forums, or we have forums that public don't have access to, that wouldn't work so well. We want something that's fully automated. So we want to have a manually edited menu, but we want to automatically insert all the forums that you have access to underneath this. Okay, so include sitemap. And we're going to include the children of the given page link as automatic children of this branch. So what that should do, if this works right, is it should include all these nodes underneath the actual node we have here. And there we go, that works. Let me see what I said in this. Menu editing, adding content trees into a node. Okay, that was pretty quick. How can I make this more complicated? Okay, so let's just try some of the different options here. So if we change it to replace this branch, then I believe what will happen is we'll have all the forums as top level links. So let's try that. Yeah, which can be useful. If we wanted to pull in all the forums on the top level, that's how you do it. And let's get it back. Okay, and let's say we only want to show a forum link if you have access to the forums. We can do that with this checkbox. And I believe by default, the guest user can't access the forums. I remember. Oh, they can actually. Okay, let's do a different example. Let's change this to a link into theme. Let's take it to the configuration module of the admin zone. Okay, and if we're the guest user, keep thing, by the way, is really useful for just testing different users. Okay, we don't even have any menu items because it just sees we don't have permission. And you can see the replacing the adding the contents works for the admin modules too, because we still have this left on. And the entire menu system works via the site map system in Composr, which automatically organizes all the content and modules into a huge single sitemap. Okay, let's say we're going to turn this off. So it's going to show this link to everyone with permission. But let's say instead of working on permissions, we want to hide it for anyone who is a guest user. A logged in user would get the link and they'd click the link and it would give an access denied, but a guest user would not see the link at all. So that might be useful if you want to provide like an easy admin login link for any user. And that is much more complicated. So we do that in the restrict link visibility field. I'll tell you what, before I do that, I'll do something slightly different. I'm going to say this admin config link will only show, so we won't see it, but if we go to the forum, can't see it either. Hang on. Yeah, I guess we had to put in the page name. So we do see it on the forum, and we do see it here. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. So the problem is caching is an issue. It's not that we have to put in the page name. It's that we've got the block is cached, and it's not cached separately for each page. Okay, so I guess this tutorial is going to go in a different direction. The problem I have is it won't do a full evaluation of the menu if you have caching enabled for it. So we have to actually turn off caching for the default menu. So we edit the template and say cache equals 0 for the menu. There we go, it works now. I better check that is actually documented, that that match option doesn't work without caching disabled. Okay, so that's somewhat useful to be able to contextually have menu items only on certain pages. But the reason I was starting to look at that option is because we can use it to do a little fudge. And this is a really common request, to be able to have links that only show if some temp code condition is true. So the scenario we were going to do is we're going to say the link isn't going to show for a guest. So the temp code for detecting if someone is a guest is guest, I believe. And if that is true, if its guest is true, then we're going to output nothing. This is really weird. I'm going to explain what I'm doing in a sec. Otherwise, we're going to output never. Just do that. Okay, so what this does is it's kind of a hack. This restrict link visibility option does support temp code. What you can do is you can put in a condition and make it output a match key that will never pass if you want the link to be hidden. So if is guest is true, it will output blank. Oh, sorry, I wanted it the other way around. I wanted to output never. If is guest is true, it will output a match key of never, which is never going to pass because you're never going to have a match key that matches the word never. I could put in anything here. I could put in Bob here. Otherwise, it won't put anything else. So this is an empty string. There's nothing between the comma and the closing brace. Just bear with me a sec. I'm not entirely convinced that is guest is the right symbol name, so I'm just going to check that. It is, okay. Okay, let's try that. So back to home. I want the root zone actually. Okay, so we're logged into admin, and we see the link because we're outputting a blank match key for that temp code because its guest isn't true. If we are the test user, default user called test, it still shows it. But if we are the guest user, it doesn't show it. By the way, the home menu item keeps disappearing, which confused me at first. But the reason for that is because the home menu link is going to the site zone. And by default, the site zone doesn't have any guest permissions. So if I edit that to the root zone homepage, and I switch to guest again, I see the home link because we do have access to that, but I don't see the admin config link. And again, it's not because I don't have permission, because I don't have permission checks enabled for that menu item. Made temp code that will output a match key that can't pass for the guest user. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, as I say, it's a bit of a hack, but it works perfectly. Okay. Well, that was fairly straightforward. Okay, we do have a bit of time. Maybe we can start some of this better email log management thing. Or maybe we can do a unit test. Let's see what I'm monitoring here.
This is Bob. Speaking of unit tests, you generated that US English thing last week. How long does it normally run before it gives you?
It depends on the test. It might be a US English test. Maybe it'd take 5 seconds because that test has to empty the cache. It really varies massively. So just for anyone pedantic listening, when we say unit test, we typically mean integration test. We do have unit tests too, but we just call all our tests unit tests. And because most of the integration tests, that is usually doing a lot of complicated stuff, calling up many different parts of Composr and checking things across multiple subsystems and checking out. So some of them literally take like 5 minutes to run. The typical one, it might be like 10 seconds on average. But in theory, a unit test might end in a 10th of a second if it's a really simple real unit test. Okay, so I accidentally mentioned fields.xml earlier when it was .xml. I talked about the wrong file. But we've never done a video tutorial about fields.xml. And it's kind of a cool feature of Composr that's a little bit hidden. So in the process of writing a unit test, I can also explain how the feature works. So the interface for editing that is in the admin zone under the admin config module. Save time, I've typed in the URL. So we have some default rules here. And like I did for breadcrumbs, I'm just going to do this in my editor because it's nicer to use a text editor than the browser. So we're going to override the field.xml. So we have some default rules again. And I'm not sure I even want to explain all the default rules. I'm just going to limit to these rules. And I'm going to change them slightly. So I'll explain what they do first, then I'll prove that they work, and then we'll try fiddling with them a bit. So they're actually commented out by default too, so I'll uncomment them. Okay, so field restrictions is what's in this file. Then we have a filter that's saying that these field restrictions are only going to apply to people who are not staff. But I don't want that. Let's take that out because it's a bit hard to test. We're having a set of rules that for the CMS news page and for these screens on it, the add screen and the this is the screen that shows that you've added something. So it's the screen that runs when you've added something. And it's working on the field name called post, which is the news field, the domain article field. And it's defining some filter rules. So it's saying the minimum length of a post is 5 characters, the maximum length is 32,000. You're not, I think shun will that word. I think it was strip it, but I can't quite remember honestly. And we're not allowing any word that looks like that, and I'm not going to read it out in case the money gets the stream gets demonetized. Let's change it to something else anyway. Let's be polite here. Let's change it to I don't know, something random. Okay, so this is basically the same as a word filter. I think we're defining custom word filter for the new, and this is disallowing the whole substring. We'll test it out and we'll see what happens when we try this. And then here's another filter. It's saying for the CMS news page again, for the same screens, but this one's running on the title field. And we're applying remove shout, which basically stops people submitting news with an uppercase title. So let's try and break all these rules. Well, let's break them one by one and see what happens. Okay, and the reason we're writing a test for this is it's not something that we try out much in Composr. It's quite an obscure feature. So we want to make sure it keeps working. So I want to start with the bottom one. I want to start with the shout one because I think it's a good example. So someone angry is the website and they're submitting some news. Okay, so we added it. Let's edit it now. Oh, look, it's changed the title. And that's because it's applied this remove shout rule, which is kind of cool. Let's try and break another rule. So let's break the min length rule. Because it's only happening on the add and edit screens. If we edit now, we can't actually run the rule, but we can edit it so it runs on the underscore edit screen. Also, it needs to be the underscore edit screen, which is the screen that runs when you save and edit. And I'll make this other rule apply for this screen too. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the WYSIWYG just in case that interferes with our length. Yo, which is less than 5 characters, and see what happens. Oh dear, we have failed the match, so it's not allowing us to submit. Okay, so let's leave it at this one. So 32,000, we know what's going to happen, so we won't test this one. Disallowed substring, let's try that.
So is that an intended result? Hello? Chris, I think you're muted. Unless other people...
Yeah.
All right, there you go.
Yeah, I think someone muted me by mistake. I'm unmuted now. Okay, so when we match the disallowed word rule, it creates that interstitial screen where you're forced to correct it to something else. So if we had someone breaking a rule, it would give them a chance to make sure they don't break the rule.
Right.
Or if it was a bot, then the bot would probably just be stopped flat there because it wouldn't understand how to proceed. So it's useful for this, just kind of enforcing standards, making sure people know the rules, stopping bots, that kind of thing. And I think we know what this one's going to do, so we won't bother talking about this. So we want to add a unit test to make sure that this keeps working. So we're going to add a unit test. I just always start with one as as a starting point. So this is a nice short one. And it's going to be, and we will test the remove shout option. Okay, so the test framework is not meant to be run on any kind of production site whatsoever. So we are allowed to be a bit destructive in these tests. So I'm actually going to write out a field X inside the test, and I'm going to destroy my customization because no one should be doing this on a real site. So test.xml is going to be a string, which is going to be our test.xml, and some apostrophes in that we need to escape. And we're going to put that into a file, which is that's right, .xml config. So it's this path under the root, and this just gives you the path to the root. We always use absolute paths in Composr just to make it bulletproof in case the working directory changes for some reason. Okay, so we're writing out the file with our test.xml, and then we're going to have to simulate a request and make sure the effect of our filter actually happens in the request. So this is going to be slightly more tricky because we've got to submit a request as an admin somehow. I'm just looking at this auth test to see if I can pull in some code for it. I'll tell you what, I'm going to cheat for now, and I'm going to fix this up after the chat. So I'm going to cheat by editing the site config, and I'm going to say that my own IP address is going to be backdoored. That will allow the test itself to call the site and be logged in as admin. I'm running on localhost, so I guess the IP is going to be that. Okay, so I'm going to call a page, which is going to be the CMS news page, CMS zone. I think I can strip out most of the stuff here. Strip out all that. Okay, and strip out that. This code just came from the other test, so I'm just changing it to be appropriate. Okay, so we're calling the CMS news page and the CMS zone. We're calling the underscore add screen. Okay, this is going to be a bit more complicated than I hope because I actually need to pass through all the parameters that the screen needs. Let's worry about that in a minute, though. Okay, so changing that temp code URL into a string, evaluate, and we're calling the HTML download file API in Composr. I don't remember what that is. Okay, it's in here. I don't even need this line. Global free is always included by default. And we're going to have to pass more than the URL. We don't have a byte limit, so we'll leave that as null. We will trigger an error on failure. We're not going to block redirects. We'll leave the user agent as Composr, but the post params we do need to set. So the post params is going to be an array or a map. We'll set the title field to be in uppercase, and we'll set the post field to be test. Okay, so I'm just wondering what other fields we need to pass through. So if I go to the add form, as I said, it's a little bit complicated, this test. Okay, so the title field in the HTML is title, so that's what this is. Then we have to pass, which is the main use category field 7, and we need to pass in this field, which I think is called author. Yep, author, and we'll put that to admin. Okay, what else do we have? Validated needs to be 1. And that's probably all we actually need to pass. Okay, so I'm just going to exit on the result, see what the result is. Just so that I know what's happening in the test. It's just a temporary thing whilst I finish it. So the test is filter XML. Okay, so I've done some kind of syntax error in my coding. Line 51. Whoops, I put all these parameters on the URL, and it should have been on the HTTP download file call. Okay, and I've missed out a bracket somehow. I mean, I had an extra bracket. Okay. It received some kind of error. It's going to be in the error log. It probably won't be. Okay, this is going to get slightly tricky. I don't believe in version 10 we can show what the remote message is if there's an error. Yeah, in version 11's API we can. So I need to kind of hack around a bit here. I realize this is getting super technical. You don't need to really follow exactly what I'm doing, but it's useful for people to have an idea how unit tests work. So I'm just messing around with the downloader code. And I'm just going to exit out when I get the payload back from it. I'm just trying to find where that is. Okay, it's here. Here we go. So we're knowing what the payload is, most of it anyway. I've got to change that to be something bigger. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, the problem I've got now is it's buffered. It's not giving us the full result back. I'm just going to where the code is that deals with the exit. Just bear with me. Okay, that's not working very well. Okay, let me try something different here. Okay, while not FEOF. Okay, there we go. Okay, so it's actually complaining we don't have a security token passed. That's a tricky one. We somehow need to pass in a security token from our code. I'm not quite sure offhand how to solve that one. I guess, unfortunately, the second time in a row we tried to write a unit test, it's got way more complicated than I hoped for. I'm just going to put a to-do in here, just to remember to take that code out. Okay, so... Okay, I'm just going to hack my way through this until the test passes, and then I'll make sure it's tidier later. We have a code which checks a token. Temporarily disable that code. I'm going to find that error message. So the language string for that error message is this. And it might be in the input filter 2 that it does this. Nope. Global 3 maybe. CSRF.php. That's probably it, yeah, okay. Temporarily disable that check. Okay, I didn't fill in all fields. Now I wonder what field it was. So back to the test, this test, and we'll add keep fatalistic onto the test. Set trace, yep. Which will allow us to find that the news field wasn't filled in. So we've put news as the same as post. That's the full article field. Now, okay. Oh yeah, okay. So I'm only wanting to test one rule at a time here. Okay, that's weird. Oh, okay. I didn't even write my test file properly. So it's calling file put contents on the path, and it has to put in the text. Still complaining. I think this is a permissions issue. Okay, I'll just make sure that it actually matches the file I have saved on disk, and I'll worry about the file permissions later. Okay, what's happening? Okay, so now the test has managed to add the news article. And if we looked at it, we should see it has changed the title. So somehow the test now needs to find out the ID of the news article just added, and the best way to do that is just to find the maximum ID number in the database. So ID is doing a query on the news table, and we're finding the max ID. And what we need to do is we need to actually, no, there's a better way to do this. We're going to select from the news table. I'm going to select everything, and we're going to have no kind of where condition, and we're going to order by, add date, sending. That's going to get the last record first, and we only want one record, and that is going to be our rows. And we're going to say row is rows 0, the first row, which is the last row. The first row returned is the last row because of our order. And then we're going to have an assert, which is our actual test here. We're going to say that the row title is going to be equal to example, i.e. it's changed to title case like we want. And that should work. Okay, now I'm getting flood control, which I hadn't considered. Okay, so to bypass that, because flood control works on the title, we're going to have to make the title dynamic, which complicates our test too. So we're going to set the title to be equal to that, except we're going to have a random number put on the end between 1 and 100,000. Make that a string. So we're putting a random number on the end, and we're going to test that we're going to get back example with, well, I guess we'll do this slightly differently. We're going to set the random number to that R&D variable, and we're going to test that we get back this. Okay, 37 error. I missed a bracket, and I've left the bracket here. And this isn't going to work because I left some debug code in, I just realized. Okay, at least we got rid of the error screen. I have to take out the debug code from here, get that back to the defaults. Now try it. Okay, add date. It's not the add date field. Okay, so the news module, news table, where is it? Where's the date field? Date and time, not add date, date and time. My date and time, and another one. Okay, so it's just complaining it can't write to the file, the lack of permissions. Can fix that. For the purposes of the tests, I think it's reasonable to assume that for web server permissions are on all the files. So I'm just going to quickly do that on one of my directories. Okay. And it almost passes except for this, which is a result of the custom version of PHP we run. And I can solve that very quickly. Actually, I can solve it by doing that, I think. Oops. Files code file. Oh, maybe it's in the files too code file. No. Oh, okay. Files code file, and it's actually called this. And we've succeeded. So I think the only fudge I have at this point is I had to fudge the config file to let my web server through as admin. Now I can actually do this properly. I can create a session in code to properly authenticate the test as an admin login. Now it'll take me like 10 minutes, but I'll do that offline. So we did successfully complete quite a complicated unit test, and I'm quite happy with that. So it's kind of the end of the chat now. Do we want to spend just like a few minutes if anyone wants to ask me anything?
Anyone else have questions?
None from Arizona.
Okay. Okay, great. Then I guess we can wrap it up now.
All right.
Next week, the chat is going to be substantially earlier because I'm actually going to be in the US on a different time zone. So I think it's going to be something like 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. But we'll confirm that this week in our announcement on the forum. So thank you everyone for coming.
All right.
I hope it was useful. A little bit chaotic again, but as I'm doing complicated stuff whilst talking, I think it's going to be a bit like that. Okay, so I hope to see you all next week. Bye then.